This is Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium.
Today's guest is Mark McGee. Mark has been known in the music business for a very long time, from 1995 to 2004, and in 2007, Mark was lead guitar and slide guitar, bringing an exciting, fresh edge to the classic music of Southern blues icon and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee Gregg Allman. From 1986 to 1995, Mark's incomparable songwriting and performance contributions to metal's Vicious Rumors are held in high regard, and essence and signature sound has been missing since his departure. Vicious Rumors' definitive albums and Mark co-wrote, co-produced, and performed on, and now hailed as classics, are within the genre. Mark has been busy doing a solo career, and I look forward to bringing him on now. Welcome to the show, Mark.
How are you, Kathy? Nice to be here.
Very good. Thank you so much. You know, I was reviewing a lot of your bio, and I was just like one thing after another. I was like, what hasn't he done? Just really incredible. I want to start out with Vicious Rumors because I recently had David K. Starr on, and he and I were discussing the band and going back to that period of time. And the fan base is really huge. So do you want to speak briefly about that? Because that was early on in your career.
Yeah, boy. Dave and I first met when I was a teen and he was a teen. And we were playing shows in the San Francisco Bay Area together. I was in an original band called Overdrive, and he was in a band called Law's Rocket. And we knew each other from back then. And, we both went through our series of local bands, and it was a great scene back then. Plenty of gigs, plenty of great clubs to play. Everybody was really supportive of each other. And at one point, I had kind of gone away from the hard rock thing for a little while, and I was doing more prog rock with a reformed version of a 70s band called Star Castle, which was from Champaign, Illinois in the late 70s. They did 4 albums for Sony and were touring arenas with Boston and Kansas and Rush and all those bands. And when I was 19, I met the bass player Gary Strader from Star Castle, and I started playing with them. And I was with them for a few years, and that was a great time. Right after that fell apart for me, I bumped into Dave at a pizza joint, and he mentioned to me that Vicious Rumors was in the search for a new guitar player. It was after their first record was done. So we had a good conversation, and so we agreed to get together and try to write a song. And so we did, and that was in our studio in Oakland, California. We ended up writing the song Digital Dictator, which was the title track of the first album that I was a part of, second album for the band. And, the vibe was good. I hadn't met anybody else from the band. No one else was there. After some of the members were back in the fold, I think Jeff Thorpe was on vacation or something in Hawaii where he grew up, but he came back and Dave had told him how it went, and everybody was excited. They wanted to meet me, so we had a jam where I came down and played some Vicious Rumors songs with them. It went really well. I really was in a different headspace. I was, sometimes you deal with certain people in a situation and it makes you feel a certain way about that type of situation. And really, maybe it's not fair to generalize things like that. But I was young and impressionable. And I was kind of, the people that I dealt with in the metal scene weren't very kind. So I was kind of moving away from that and heading more into a prog rock, artsy thing, So I wasn't looking to do the metal at that point. But I knew Dave, it was fun. And I ended up just doing it, and joining the band. And it took one rehearsal. So we did another month or so being in the band, and the singer was this guy, Gary St. Pierre. Apparently they were having issues with Gary, which I didn't know about when I came on board. About 6 weeks into it, Carl Albert came into the picture and replaced Gary as a singer. And then that kind of set the lineup with Jeff, Dave, Carl, Larry Howe, and myself. We moved forward and did the Digital Dictator record. I think we recorded it in late 87. Came out in early 88, and I was a youngster on that record. It was my first legitimate record. I had done lots of demos with bands and familiar with the studio, but I was 21 on that record, and it's funny because I feel some of our later records are really a better representation of us, but that record has been a classic for the history of the band. So you can never tell, what people are gonna be fondest of, but that record's a staple for sure. And we had a good time together.
Yes. Well, when you mentioned you're 21, but the time in music to me is so important. 1988. So you're in a metal band, but then you look around and see all the other metal bands that were very popular at that time. So that being your famous first album, it's also a time for a lot of other bands to have their famous first albums as well. So you were in good company.
It was a great time for that music for sure. And I love all types of music. I love heavy music. I love classical, jazz, blues, funk. I'm kind of all over the map. I love ambient music and new age music. And for me, what's always important is if it feels genuine, if it doesn't seem contrived, and especially I'm very fond of a good singer. So for me, it's like the singer is like the most important thing for me as a music fan, as far as listening to music. But to do one type of thing never seemed like a possibility for me. There's too many things I wanted to do. There's still too many things I haven't done yet publicly that I'd like to do. But we had a good time. We had a good run. A couple videos that were embraced on MTV. Lots of traveling. Got to go to Europe many times together and raise hell over there. So it's pretty wild,
Yes, rock and roll, especially during that period of time. Very good. So how did you move away from Vicious Rumors? Because I know you got involved with working with Greg Allman.
Well, Love Planet is really my main band. That has been my main focus for many, many years. So it's a good time to interject that. When I left Vicious Rumors, it was in March of '95. There was nothing personal there. I loved the guys. I was proud of what we did, but I just felt like we needed to kind of put a new twist in the music, do something new, and I really wasn't feeling the same feedback from everybody, so rather than play hardball, I just kind of tried to graciously move on. They weren't happy, but we were cool pretty quickly after. So I was really just searching myself. I just kind of wanted to be a musician and not be tied to something and kind of see what would reveal itself, Several months into that phase, I was sitting in with some local buddies in Alameda, California, called the Alameda All-Stars. And a couple of those guys were playing with Greg at the time. And so that's kind of how that door opened. An audition came available for the guitar slot. They invited me to audition, and I did. And I really didn't think it was going to happen, not because of my playing, but because I just didn't grow up on that music. I mean, I got turned on to them, but I didn't really know the catalog in depth. And so, but then I got the gig, so that was a nice left field surprise. So, of course, the studying, I get all the Allman Brothers records and learn all the stuff. And so we started doing rehearsals. At that time, Greg Allman was living in Northern California. And so we would rehearse sometimes before a tour at this place called SRS Studios, which was a big rehearsal recording studio complex in Marin County. The founder of it, the one who was managing it, Daniel Poselli, I used to always say to him, hey, if you need any sessions for any guitar players for sessions, here's my number, And so he called me one day and said, hey, I got this session. It's this girl singer that I know, Nicole Sutton. I think you'd be perfect for the session. So I came down and I did guitar tracks for 3 songs for this lady, Nicole. And I didn't meet her that day. There was a room full of girls in the recording studio, and none of them said a word. So I assumed one of them was Nicole. But I did this session, and I went on with my business. And a couple weeks later, he invited me down. He invited Stu Hamm to come down, Jeff Campitelli. And so he kind of put this thing together as far as bringing in musicians to play with Nicole and work up versions of her songs. That's how Love Planet started. And it probably wouldn't have started had I not nailed down this Greg Allman show gig, because we used to rehearse at the studio, and that's how I met Daniel. So this was all kind of happening at the same time. So then I got busy with Greg. Greg would tour when the Allman Brothers weren't touring. So as soon as the Allman Brothers run would be done, Greg Allman and friends, we would go out for 6 weeks here, 3 months there, and we'd be filling in those holes in the Allman Brothers schedule. But during that whole time, Nicole and I developed this really strong relationship, not personal, just musical, and it just kept blossoming. We just found that we had a lot in common with our diverse taste in music. We realized that our voices had a sound that connected and meshed well. So in 2003, during the years of playing with Greg, we had recorded the first Love Planet record. Love Planet now is getting ready to do their 8th record coming out next year. Yeah, the Greg thing was just a real trip. It was a great learning experience. I mean, I grew up on a lot of music that had a lot of blues in it, but I didn't grow up on traditional blues. I grew up on 70s rock, everything from Led Zeppelin to Pink Floyd to Aerosmith and Journey and AC/DC and Kiss and, probably things that a lot of players, might say. And all the guitarists played with a lot of blues influence, but never really got turned on to the Allman Brothers catalog, I knew who they were, the blonde-haired brothers. One played keys, one played guitar, but I just never really got turned on to the whole thing. So doing that was a great thing. It was gave me a lot of new insight with music, and Greg has some real old school philosophies about the instrumentation in bands and how musicians should work together and how a song should feel. So it was good. It added a lot into my palette as far as the sensibilities to music and how you might want to craft it. But Nicole and I were just talking the other day, and I'm a very thoughtful person in that I'm kind of maybe I'm too real for my own good, but I think about how every day I think how this could be my last day. I mean, I live in a state of gratefulness all the time, and now it's like Carl from Vicious Rumors has passed, Gary from Starcastle has passed, Greg is gone, and it's just Love Planet is still going forward, and it's just the whole thing. Nothing could have happened without the other. Like everything kind of connected and triggered and led to. But musically, I'm still in search of how to make what I do deeper and a little bit unexpected. I don't see a lot of metal guitar players that have gone away from it. You don't always get the support from certain genres when you gravitate too far away from what you're known for. But there's been a significant amount of metalheads that have stayed tuned in and shown their support, and that's been nice. But I'd be on tour with Greg, and people would say, "So what did you do before this?" And I'd be like, "Well, I was playing metal with Vicious Rumors," and they'd be like, "What?" They just couldn't get their mind around it. And then I'd get metalheads writing me messages saying, "Why are you wasting your time playing with Greg Allman?" Like everybody's got their own weird thing to say about it. When the whole time, like I'm grateful for Vicious Rumors and what we did. I'm grateful for the Greg thing. But Love Planet has been the focus, because it's melodic rock and roll that can kind of go anywhere. You can't take the metal out of me, but you can't take the country out of me or the blues out of me or things that other people may not know about me either. It's just a big swirl, And as a musician, I liked having that freedom. Any kind of song is welcome.
I really appreciate what you were saying when you were describing Greg and how he would have certain ways about how he was in music. Reflecting on it, you realized that you were able to learn from some of that. What did you feel was the best lesson from Greg that you carried over into Love Planet, into other things that you've done?
Well, I guess, let the music do the talking. That old adage, The only issue that ever came up with me, Greg was very sensitive very hypersensitive. Like I remember being backstage, Nicole and I being backstage in the dressing room one night, and somebody walked in the room. They were 20 feet away from Greg on the other side of the room. Greg didn't know this person, and we just saw Greg, his whole demeanor, his face, everything changed. There was a shift, and he just did not. He felt this energy coming from this person. He had that person removed so fast. Like he was very sensitive to the way things felt in the room. But, the only issue he ever had with me, because, sometimes you have issues with musicians in your band, was that I moved around too much. And this was like, I joined in late 95. So in summer of 96, I think we were playing a show in El Paso, Texas. It was Fort Briggs, I think. Where's the Fort Bragg? Yeah, Fort Briggs. And it was a nighttime concert, probably 30,000 people. And you're out there ready to just kill it for the military. It was awesome. And Nugent and Bad Company were the openers. After the show, it became apparent to me via the other piano player in the band that Greg was thinking of switching it up because I moved around too much. And I said, well, that's odd. I can just tone it down a little. It's all good. I came from the school, like when you're on stage and there's an empty spot on the stage, somebody go fill that spot. It's entertainment. So let the music do the talking. You stand in your spot. When it's time to take a solo, you take a few steps up. You go into the spotlight, you do your thing, you kind of gracefully cruise back, don't make a big hoopla about it, But just, his kind of direct approach, like in a song when there's a break, when there's a hard stop, people want to fill that stop with something, a little guitar thing or, a little drum. He would really be adamant about shut the door on it. That's how he would say it, shut the door on it, nothing in that sound, make that break bone quiet. But it was just a feeling, playing that music for many years. There was a certain dynamic and temperament to it that just kind of fine-tuned those types of elements, dynamics. I mean, it just kind of fine-tuned that. And I think even if you go away from that kind of music and you're playing rock and roll or a little harder edged music, you're still aware now of those nuances. And sometimes it's hard to put into words what you might be hearing on a tune, but because you're feeling those things, you have to try to direct it and navigate it till it's right. So communicating that to other musicians in the band is an art, that's for sure. I always say, if the song was the band member, what would the song say to do? Because then it kind of removes your ego from it. It's a lot easier for a musician to hear that than, hey, would you mind doing this? I think you should, So, and I'm kind of the musical director in our group by default, I guess. Being respectful to the musicians you're playing with is huge. You got to treat them good and talk to them respectfully and, try every idea you can. Things I learned from Greg, those are important. There's a lot of other things I learned from the extraneous Allman Brothers organization that was always ever present. Sometimes things that you would not want to do, ways that you would not want to conduct business, There was a lot of rivalry, I think, the West Coast, East Coast thing, California musicians, not always a fixture in Allman Brothers related side projects. So being from California, working amongst a lot of people from the South, there's that period of acceptance you kind of have to go through, and some people get political. That's a big camp, I mean, you have the Grateful Dead and the Allman Brothers. That's pretty much every hippie band in existence. It's because of those two bands, It's kind of like Sabbath and Priest for metal, Everybody thinks they know more and they're in more and this and that. So you just can't get sucked into those things. So I just like to keep it real. I don't like to play I don't play that way.
I'm really enjoying listening to you because you really have a lot of self-reflection, but also this capacity to show that you've kind of absorbed so much in your whole career. that you can go back and kind of revisit it and see where there was points in your life where you did see that you needed to go on to something else. As you were talking, and I was like realizing that you've done so many albums with Love Planet, how is it, especially being the role of the music director, as you stated, is it hard to eliminate something or say, we just have to like kill this section and move on? Or like that to me, because a lot of people feel married to something, you know, when I write, I love this paragraph, but nobody thinks it's working, so I have to, you know, move on from it. How would you advise, because we have a lot of listeners that are creative artists as well, what would be the best way of describing, because you have to get everyone on the band on board to kind of part with something?
Yeah, you know, I've used that phrase too, don't be married to it. You know, preparing to record music, for example, you figure out the beats per minute, you figure out the exact tempo that you want the song to be at, you work out the arrangement best you can. At least this is how I like to do it. When I go into a studio, I want to be as prepared as possible. I mean, there's no clock that moves faster than when you're in a recording studio and you're paying, you know. And really, it's nowadays, it's kind of like you go in to get your drum tracks, and once you get your drum tracks, you can kind of bring things home and do other stuff and then bring it somewhere to mix, unless you have that at home. I don't, so I go somewhere else to mix. But I always have said, even on the drive to the day one of the studio, and remember, don't be married to your parts, because it's such a great thing to remember. It keeps you open, and you have to be prepared to be flexible. You have to be willing to try things that you've never tried, or try an idea that no one's ever come up with until you're in the room and someone says, hey, what if we do this? It's the weirdest thing. And maybe it's like this with your words, and when you maybe say them out loud. You know, you play a song 100 times, everything sounds perfectly crafted, perfectly how you want it. You go in to record it, and you're hearing it back, and it's just not working. You know, it either feels stiff, or it sounds contrived, or whatever it might be. And it's like, you have to be flexible in the moment, you know, because tomorrow you might feel differently about it. But right now, that's what you're working on. So you got to try to change it up. I look at it like this. If you have something that isn't going to work, you have to cut a section of the tune out. Hey, you could put that section in another song. You could build a whole new song around that. The hardest thing that I've noticed is for musicians to just try something that they've never tried. But I've always played this, you know. Well, that's fine. Maybe you'll still play that. But you don't really know if an idea is going to work until you play it. And you can't just play it to please the person who came up with the idea or who's requesting that you try the idea. You have to play it like you believe it's going to work, you know, everybody together. And then you got to maybe play it 5 or 10 times till actually it's second nature. And then you record it. And then you listen back, not playing it. That's when you really know. And that's for me with recording albums nowadays. That's the ultimate decision maker, is if something's working or not. You know, is how does it sound to me when I'm just listening? When I listen to my own work, I have to try to listen to it like you or somebody on the outside would be listening to it, which is impossible, but I have to try, you know, because everybody else gets to hear it all at once as one cohesive thing, and then they can decide if it sucks or if it's good, you know, and that's the beauty of art. But as the one creating, I found that in the end, once the album's done, it's been out 3 months, whatever, I'm at a party, my buddy puts on our record, you know, and first time I'm actually hearing it in front of a room full of people I don't know, and it makes you hear it differently. Your whole emotional state, like everything is kind of put on the spot. And I'm comfortable in that environment, but it doesn't change the fact that you hear it differently. And you really kind of get to know how well you did, because if you enjoy it and you can hear it just like you hear an Eagles record or a Scorpions record, then you're good, you know. So in the end, it's a very simple outcome for me. It's like when I hear it, am I like, that sounds cool? Yeah, nothing's bugging me. You know what I mean? Nothing's bugging me. I can enjoy it just like when I hear Zeppelin or when I hear Miles Davis or whatever. I'm able to hear it, accept it, enjoy it, not worry about anything. Nothing's jagging me. Aerosmith said that once. What makes a great Aerosmith song? We get rid of everything that bugs us. When there's nothing that bugs us, the song's done.
I love that because listening to musicians over the years, a few times I've heard, don't hate a song because it could be the next hit. And then you're strapped playing that song that you hate for the rest of your career.
Yeah, and then what? You have to convince yourself secretly, silently that you actually don't hate it, and then you just feel like a fraud every time you play it. So either way, yeah.
Wow. What is one of the highlights of all of your 8 albums with Love Planet? The ones that you could pick out that you could say, these are my favorite babies, or...
It's been a wonderful ride because the only thing that Nicole and I ever decided early on, I might have said it, I don't know, but I said the only rule we should ever have is that there's no rules, so that any kind of song is welcome, whether it's a country song, pop song. I mean, I love pop music. I love the Beatles. I love bands with a lot of vocals. I like Doris Day. I like all sorts of music, a lot, that most people would never realize I like. And Nicole's the same way. Every album is kind of a time capsule. Stylistically, where we're at, I hear the gear I was using on that record versus the gear I was using on this record. Song-wise, we've always been as diverse as we still are. So it's hard to pick a favorite or better or worse. I think Something Good, the double album that we put out in 2020, is quite the achievement, because to release 20 songs and make a double record is something I always wanted to do. I grew up on Led Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti, Quadrophenia. There's a few double records that I just thought were cool, and I always thought I wanted to do a double record one day, So we did our double album. That was quite the achievement. It was a big task, a big mountain to climb. I'd do another one now, but I'm fond of song-wise. There's, we always have some prog elements in our music. Songs like Cages from the Something Good album, or The Stone from the Lovolution album. Our message has always kind of leaned positive, and it's never been something that was decided. We've been asked, are you guys a Christian band? And we're like, no. Not that there's a problem with that, but we always seem to lyrically lean towards a glimmer of hope, the glass is half full kind of thing. And the name, people might think is some big statement, and it is really, but when we did our first record with Stu Hamm and Jeff Campitelli, the only commitment from those guys, and we played together nonstop for like most of '99 to prepare for that first record. And then they got busy going on the road with Joe Satriani, and we continued crafting stuff, preparing to record the album. When they came off the road, we were like, hey, we're going in to do the record. You guys want to come do it? They're like, absolutely. So we did that first record. But there was never a, we're going to be your permanent rhythm section kind of commitment, right? So we needed to find an actual rhythm section to move forward. And so after that, we kind of moved into... It was really kind of maybe a little edgier sound on State of Mind. State of Mind's a deep album. It's over 70 minutes long. My mother had passed away a week earlier, and my band was they were all very supportive and said, maybe we should take a little time, And my mom was an artist, and I said, no, I think she would want us to do this, So when I hear that record, there's a lot of mom energy coming out of that for me. And maybe I hear things that I played and thought, well, maybe I would have played something different, maybe, if I wasn't going through that. But I think I got a lot out on that record. There's a song called Home. It's over 12 minutes long. That might be a fun listen for you with your medium background. Maybe you'll pick up some stuff from that one. But, it's hard to pick a highlight. I'm just really grateful that I met Nicole and we found each other, because musically it's just been this really bountiful songwriting partnership, and she's a really brilliant songwriter. I'll be listening to a song from an old record and I'll be like, wait a minute, I think I know what you mean on that now. I didn't even realize that it was going by me, but all of a sudden I get what she was saying in a deeper way. She's pretty sly sometimes, and I like that. So the body of work that we've been moving through just makes me feel really good about how I spent my time, because I feel like the music will have a nice long life. I think that it's got something that people will always need, good energy. I kind of craft my life that way now. I'll walk out of a room, I'll walk out of a movie. I don't put myself around content that makes me feel bad in any way. I just won't ingest it, even at the sake of being rude to somebody. I'm like, I'm sorry, I have to leave the room right now. I know there's darkness in the world, but I choose not to ingest it anymore. Not in a movie, not through music, not through people. It's how I want to tailor my life. I want to only bring into my being good energy. I can get good energy from metal, but not all metal. Some metal doesn't make me feel good energy. Some does. I always bring up metal because when you play metal and you're known for metal and then you don't do metal, your fans remind you, stay heavy, dude. You always get these emails, and I don't hate metal. I love music. I like heavy music, pop music, but yeah, as a human, I want to feel good. I want to wake up, feel good. I want to feel good when I'm going to bed. I want to feel good when I'm leaving rehearsal. I want to feel good when I'm making a record. I want to feel good when I get on stage. I just want to feel good. And if I can feel good all the time, that's my goal. So when I think of Love Planet and our 7 albums and our 8th one that's half finished right now, it makes me feel really good. I feel there's a lot of pride there. It's genuine. It's totally genuine. It's 100% from the heart. Back in the beginning, after Stu and Jeff got busy with Joe, we were doing little acoustic things in Marin County, and we didn't really have a band name, so we were going by the Love Junkies. And then we got served papers by an attorney from New Jersey who represented some cover band called the Love Junkies. It's like, but I was on MTV, wait a minute, and you're suing me from a cover band okay, this is hilarious. Those are the silly things that go in your head. So then we thought, okay, let's do the old vaudeville thing. We'll both write down a bunch of words, crumple them up, put them in a jar, and we'll each pick one. And I picked love, or she picked love, I don't remember who, and the other one was planet. And I go, well, I guess we're still love something, so Love Planet, and that's how we came up with our band name, We decided, let's spell love weird and put it together as one word and be improper English like Aerosmith, it'd be cool like that, just be quirky with it. But, it ended up that it is a statement. It's not always easy being in a band called Love Planet. It brings out the people who are feeding on the hate, I'll tell you that. But it was weird. It was almost like we went through a test early on where people would tell us what they thought of our name or try to stick something to it. But it seemed like it was a test period because eventually, by the 3rd record, it all kind of stopped and it flipped. And people would just always say, oh, what a great name, So it's weird when you look at things like that. You notice, the trigger points. But it's just a great thing. It's still going. And I look forward to seeing what people think of the next record. We're always 2 albums ahead. So by the time we make a record, we've got 30 or 40 songs that we just can't even believe are not going to be on this record because the writing happens all the time. And so it's really hard to pick songs when we do a record.
That's incredible. Well, prior to this interview, I actually listened to Spirit, which is a new solo release from Portal. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because that song in itself is over 7 minutes long, but I'm just mesmerized by it. I could just sit here and listen to it on and on, like on repeat. So tell me more about that.
So Portal's the new album. It's a year old as of last week. It came about in an interesting way. I had planned to do a solo project years back, and I had my drummer, Jamo Van de Bogert from Greg Allman Band, great guy from Wisconsin, great drummer. We had done a couple of sessions in 99 or 2000, and we cut some drum tracks for a couple songs, and that was when the album was going to be started. And I really didn't know what style I was going to do back then. And then through moves and Love Planet activity, and next thing you know, it's like all these years have gone by and the album never happened. So I had found these tracks and got them digitized and decided it was time to get this thing going. So I had a song called Torch, and I had a song called River, and then I had this song called Dream of You. And these are the three starting the seedlings of this record. But I wasn't really sure, where I wanted to go. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a rock pop album, because I'd still love to do a big guns, just rock pop album. But it ended up being more of a ambient kind of spacey album. And the song titles kind of steered the ship. I started realizing I had this theme with fire and water. And then I thought, okay, well, we have to have an air and an earth song. So I reworked the words from Dream of You to Mirage, which became the earth song. And Windfall became the air song. And by this point, after I realized the elemental theme, I started jotting down a bunch of single words on a piece of paper that maybe could be an album title. And Portals was one of those, but so was Spirit. And so was all the titles for the songs on the record were in that list. There's probably 40 words. So after those first three tunes, I basically was writing each song to the title. Okay, Windfall, got to have the air song. And then I thought, well, what could I do for Windfall? And then I recalled this piano riff that I had written 6 or 7 years earlier, never did anything with. And really, it's probably the only thing I ever wrote on piano. But I thought that's perfect for Windfall. So it was very spontaneous. That was written around the piano riff and the title. And then I had these other titles, Awakening, Shimmer, Treasure. And I started realizing that I needed to have the fifth element as a part of the record, Spirit. So then Spirit was maybe the last idea that came into my mind for the record, but it had to be the album closer in the end. And then I realized I didn't have a song in the glorious, magnificent key of C. So Spirit had to be in the key of C. And then I realized, wait a minute, I don't have a song in an open tuning on the album. So Spirit has to be in an open tuning. So all these things were decided, the name, the key, the open tuning, and then I wrote the song, right? That's how Spirit came. And really, it was written relatively quickly. It came out in about 20 or 30 minutes, the main two riffs. But it ended up being a really special track. So in the end, as I watched it form into what it is, I realized that the theme, the elements were just literally the elements of the story. Because to me, the album is like when the Awakening song starts at the very beginning of the record. To me, that's like when the first spark of all life bursts open. That's kind of what this album is. It's like from that blip of time, that blip, when life starts and light shines in the dark, and that process of all that's come to be to right now with people and sky and planets and earth and sun and everything just becoming. That's kind of what Portals is to me. It's a story, even though 5 of the songs don't have words. The music is part of the story, and it just takes you through this very generalized tale of the coming of life, the spirit within, the essence of who we are, and how it's just ever present. The phoenix rising from the ashes, the whole thing. It kind of formed itself. I was kind of in a swirl. I recorded almost all of it at home. I played drums on 2 of the songs. Jeff Campitelli and Stu Ham played on 1 tune. Tony Franklin, brilliant fretless bass player, one of my favorite bass players. I met him in a laundromat in Tokyo, and I recognized him, and I said, "Are you Tony?" He said, "Yes, I am." I said, so that's how we met. It was pretty funny, actually. I was with Greg's wife doing laundry and met Tony. And so that's how I got him to play on a song on Mirage. But yeah, you should have seen me doing this thing at home with cables strung everywhere and me trying to get feedback in front of my amplifier, not trying to fall down my stairs, and like headphone cables stretched into the other room. And like it was a wild experience. And I'm still kind of learning how to play some of the record because like I was in a trance. I mean, I don't know. I can usually play anything that comes out of me that I record without really trying. This record, I was in somewhere else. It was a deep thing going on. Spirit. Yeah, Spirit's another little thing that's been fun, crafting your own little lyric videos, I'm doing these things, I'm doing these videos. I'm making the record. But it's fun, When you don't have to answer to anybody, you have to dig deep, and it's amazing what you can come up with.
Yes, well, your description of the song and the process has been beautiful. And I'm so excited for you because I could just see, your heart has always been in the right place. And those people always know how to live above it. And I really appreciate you being on the show. So can you just plug your social media or let everyone know where they can get your music?
Yeah, markmcgee.com, MarkMcgee.com is my website, and loveplanet.net, LUVplanet.net is the band's website. And I'm on some of the usual places, Spotify, and we're on YouTube Music and, Instagram and Facebook, so you can find us there.
Okay, great. So we're going to roll out with Spirit, which is your new solo release from Portals. Thank you again, Mark McGee.
Kathy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
universal, elemental, transcendental. We arrive. Spirit come, spirit come, spirit running through me. Through the light, all was given, all was written long ago. Love divine, burning brightly, strong and mighty. It's everything. Spirit come, I can feel it. Spirit come, I can feel it. Spirit running through me. I feel it running, running. Spirit come, I can feel it. Spirit come, I can feel it. Spirit running through me.
You have been listening to Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium, Dream Central Station, LLC. My audio editor is Al Hemberger at the Loft Recording Studios in Bronxville, New York. This is WNEW 102.7 FM radio.